So The Boys Season 4 came out a couple weeks ago, and now that I'm finally caught up, I can talk about it. So why not start off with a response video to a video that I found a few days ago from The Critical Drinker? Because as we all know, this is definitely one of the guys to go to when looking for insightful media analysis. Remember, if you disagree with anything said in the video, make sure to stop by the Disagreement Day streams we do every week or so. Join my Discord to stay updated on when we do those. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
One of the questions that comes up pretty regularly on Open Bar these days is, Drinker, you tough-talking, charismatic gunslinger with a dark past, when are you going to review The Boys Season 4? You know, I used to be a real fan of that show, to the point where I actually gave the first season a Drinker Recommends award. And truly, what higher accolade can one bestow upon a work of art these days?
Literally anything.
I kinda checked out after season 3, partly because I was pretty burned out with superhero stories in general, even shows that subverted the genre, and partly because I could see the way The Boys was heading as a creative property. The complex, nuanced and multifaceted characters were slowly morphing into simplified parodies of themselves. The central storyline was becoming trite and predictable, and the bitingly witty satire was becoming more overt and partisan with every season, parroting the same predictable talking points as every other Hollywood product. Basically, The Boys just wasn't cool or interesting anymore. It wasn't fighting the power, it was the power. It wasn't raging against the machine, it was part of it. What was once rebellious, subversive and irreverent had become just another mouthpiece for the safe, corporatized, hollow and performative activism that it once so brutally mocked.
I like how he says all these things about Season 3 yet doesn't explain a single thing he's talking about. And I know there's gonna be idiots that actually think Drinker is good at reviewing things, and people from his fan base or people that think like him are likely to leave a comment that reads like, "Oh, it's obvious what he's talking about, and if you can't see that, then you're part of the problem." Or, "You're too stupid to understand, bro." I'm sorry to tell you, but if you do leave that kind of comment, that's not an argument, and it makes you look like a condescending dipshit. Now, I do think sometimes it can be fair to, leave a comment or say something like, "If I need to explain that to you, then you're already a lost cause," or some shit. But in the case of a statement so blanketed with zero proper explanation, you can't exactly do that. Anyways, some of you may recall my RSG response video on Invincible where I brought up how he makes blanketed statements without proper explanation, and that's not very good criticism at all. And what doesn't make sense to me is Drinker, who, I've watched his videos in the past before, and he likes to kind of parade around someone being who, fights back against the modern day media and the poor tropes within it. You would think that he would want to actually give proper criticism so that writers can genuinely improve on things that he thinks are wrong within the writing. But I guess not, and for some reason people eat this shit up and they clap like seals. Probably not even necessarily because they even know why they agree with him, but because it sounds like he agrees with their political ideology, so they're just like, yeah.
So I wasn't exactly brimming with excitement at the prospect of sacrificing another 8 hours of my increasingly limited lifespan for the new season. Frankly, I've got better things to do with my time. But hey, maybe they managed to turn things around. So it was off to Rotten Tomatoes for me to check out the reviews. Not the critic reviews, of course, because nobody in their right mind gives a shit what those fucking shills have got to say about anything anymore. I'm talking about the audience reviews, which is the only semi-reliable barometer for quality these days, and oh.
So wait, you haven't even watched the show, and you're using audience scores to back up your argument. Well, this video is off to a great start, isn't it? Let's see where this goes.
But there's no denying that Season 4 absolutely fell off a cliff. Good lord, I don't think I've seen a fanbase turn so hard on any show since Game of Thrones. Look through the reviews and you'll see page after page of absolutely brutal write-ups, all saying basically the same thing. The general consensus is that the show seems to have sacrificed writing quality and smart characterization in favour of simplistic shock value and cheap political point scoring. In short, the writers have become more interested in getting their own personal ideology across and owning the chuds, rather than actually telling a good story. And well, that sort of strategy never really pays off.
Ah yes, this certainly has nothing to do with the brain-dead idiots who only care about politics and storytelling, so they review bomb on sites such as this. But you mentioned there is page after page of brutal write-ups, so let's take a look at the criticisms that you placed on screen from Rotten Tomatoes. I'm a big fan of this show. Unfortunately, season 4 has gone off the rails. The first 3 seasons were excellent. They found the balance between crossing the line/shock moments and pulling the audience into characters on an emotional level. Season 4 is overly disgusting, overly mean-spirited, unpleasant, and lacks any redeeming value. The changes to Frenchie's character feels forced and inauthentic. I love this show, and I hate to say it, but I'm out. So we have someone doing just as Drinker is doing, saying things without any proper elaboration. The only thing that even has anything necessarily specific in regards to what he's talking about is apparently the change of Frenchie's character. But the only quote-unquote change, which isn't even a change, is the fact that they just blatantly now confirm, yeah, he's bisexual. As opposed to earlier seasons where it was only kind of hinted at, with instances such as him kissing Huey in season 1, telling MM to be more open-minded about love sausage. He was in a 3-way relationship with a dude and Cherie. Granted, that relationship isn't necessarily confirmed to be a sexual one, but it's still something that can be looked upon as a hint of it. The fact that he was a male prostitute in the past, the fact that he called his old friend Jay that died my Dorothy, and he was very upset when little Nina brings this up in season 3, and the fact that he mentioned trans strippers for MM's bachelor party in season 1. There's multiple hints at this, and it's never even established that he's not bisexual. So it's not a change to his character because you can't change something that was never established. It's also not out of character, so the writing is still fine. And his relationship with this guy is very well explored within his character, and the very prevalent theme of the season being facing your past. A self-congratulating mess which has all the subtlety of a cat in heat. What the fuck? My fucking cat just started meowing when I said that. What the fuck? Anyways, claiming to be the Noble Rebellion, it holds all the power and privilege that Hollywood loves to browbeat its audience with these days. Old hat and new kicks. Poor writing, forced introduction of new weak storylines and characters. Nothing like the magnet stories of the earlier seasons. Dragged on and empty. Boring, not light enough like the first season. I like action, not make me laugh too. So we have 3-0 burgers with 0 elaboration. Great. Alright. Awful. Seems like the writer spent the last 3 months just scrolling on Twitter instead of trying to make a good show, because this just seems like a more leftist Twitter rant rather than an actual entertaining show. Not to mention how they're becoming more and more what they parody rather than what they preach. I am very disappointed in this show. While previous seasons would take a jab at both sides of the aisle, creating a more neutral and unbiased view of society, season 4 seems to have been bought and paid for by the Democratic Party, while completely catering to the left. It also has become a soap opera that is trying so hard to ensure all characters have a complete character arc. This season, while at the same time making it drag on and on. So not only does this guy think it's a problem that all the characters have a character arc, but they quite literally do make fun of the extremists on both sides, and it's still funny. There's literally a whole scene with a character moment for A-Train that also shows Vought being fucked up just like they were with Maeve in season 2, and how the left-wing idiots don't even really care about the political messaging they put in media, and they just do it just to do it, and at points it can come off as even offensive to the people on the side that they're trying to uplift. There's also a scene with how people try to make Christmas like all-inclusive by making up so many different phrases just to say it, just because not everyone is Christian, myself included, but Christmas is still a Christian-based holiday. And before some dumbass thinks I'm just some sappy left-winger defending the show, I don't align with either side completely. I'm mostly in the middle with things, but I also really don't care much for politics. Yes, there is political stuff in the show, but it's utilized for the character writing in interesting ways. None of these people have actually explained how the writing is bad or how any of the politics get in the way of the writing. Needlessly edgy and engages in the same divisive tactics against the working class as this season's Sister Sage. It's as if conservative version of SNL made a parody of the show's stellar first 2 seasons. Sad to watch as an independent. Scenes with Urban and his wife's son were incredible. Who the fuck is Urban? Seeing A-Train's nephews forsake him for some fake heroics moved me, hoping to get more wholesome and solid plot lines that like to go along with the shock value. What the fuck am I reading? Overt biases. These writers used to be a little more subtle about their hatred, but attacking your fandom? Fandom? No. Not anymore. Unlike other episodes, the show reflects all lefties who see anyone right of their view as Hitler. The show is also getting degenerate, off the scale, and there's no essence of plot. The show moves on only through confusion, plot holes, gore, and soft... Okay, I don't know if YouTube will censor that, whatever. The show caters to morons who are confused about which bathroom to use. Okay, that was pretty fun. But you see what I mean? Not a single thing he put on screen had anything of substance to say, and neither does Drinker. So using these morons to back up your point is incredibly stupid.
Naturally, I was curious to get the other side of the story, so I took a look at a recent interview with showrunner Eric Kripke in The Hollywood Reporter, and he had this to say about accusations that the show had become too partisan. I clearly have a perspective, and I'm not shy about putting that perspective in the show. Anyone who wants to call the show woke or whatever, that's okay. Go watch something else. But I'm certainly not going to pull any punches or apologise for what we're doing. Some people who watch it think Homelander is the hero. What do you say to that? The show's many things, subtle isn't one of them. So if that's the message you're getting from it, I just throw up my hands. You know, why do I feel like this is rapidly becoming a tale as old as time? A show gets popular and goes mainstream, the writers get a little too overconfident and think they can use it as a platform for their own personal hang-ups, the fans start to push back against them, and instead of taking that criticism on board and responding in a constructive manner, they just say, fuck it, go watch something else, you dicks.
No, you moron, there's quite literally nothing wrong with what this guy said. As a creative, you can't control everyone's interpretation of your work, or if they will like your work, no matter how well written it may be. There's still a large portion of people that like what the show is doing and don't get hung up on the political messaging, because making fun of both sides is like 10% of what the show touches upon. And even when it does, it still contributes to the other 90% being good character writing, engaging plot lines, and great world building. And it also sounds like he's quite literally making fun of people doing exactly what you are doing right now. People who just say baseless nonsense and don't give actual proper criticism for the show to genuinely improve. Just shouting woke, woke doesn't help anyone improve with anything, and it doesn't spark any kind of interesting discussion. It's just political brain rot for moronic basement dwellers to eat up while they pump their fists at their monitors. Which is funny because there's a scene in the show that makes fun of exactly that.
I want to bring him together, tell him a story, give him a purpose. Which would you rather believe, that you belong to a community of warriors battling a secret evil, or that you're a lonely, inconsequential nobody that no one will ever remember?
It's this weird narcissistic sense of entitlement amongst creatives these days that everyone should just unconditionally support and agree with you because you're such a paragon of wisdom that there's no possibility you could ever be wrong about anything. The problem, Eric, is that other people don't always think exactly the same way we do. They don't always share our beliefs, parrot our opinions, mirror our viewpoints on every topic, and that's okay because people are allowed to have different points of view. A smart, humble, and creative writer finds ways to bridge the gap between all these different groups through the unifying concept of good storytelling. A bad writer, on the other hand, tries to hammer home his opinions on his audience with sheer brute force, and then gets angry and resentful when they push back against it. I'll let you decide which one you used to be and which one you are now.
You know, it's funny you say that, because if you had any sense of self-awareness, then that sentence wouldn't be uttered in this video of all places. You also haven't even explained why the storytelling of the show is bad or given any reason why you think this. With, proper explanation. Oh, I forgot, it's because you didn't watch this season. Maybe your buddies on EFAT will try and help you out, because as we all know, they're fantastic at finding problems with pieces of media.
You're right, it's something that I think we talked about. Does it make sense that the Riddler, who has specifically been targeting corrupt officials within Gotham's city, that he would flood the city?
No, I don't think it does.
No.
I think it's a huge breach of his...
Also, did you ever think it was possible that this guy doesn't necessarily align with any specific side of the political spectrum, and he just likes to take the extreme sides of both and make fun of them, while mixing and combining that stuff with the good character writing in the show and world building?
Also, it's interesting watching the discourse around the boys on social media, which I can best summarise as, the boys used to be smart and fun, now it's all about pushing politics and nothing else. Cry harder, chuds. Don't you know this show was always making fun of people like you?
Sheer fucking hubris.
Okay, let's get this over with. Yes, most people with functioning brain cells knew exactly what this show was and where its political sympathies lay. Nobody in their right mind looked at Homelander as a misunderstood hero that represented the voice of the masses.
Yeah, Twitter discourse is one of the last places you will find individuals actually bringing up interesting talking points when it comes to criticizing most media, and neither is Rotten Tomatoes. But you say no one actually looks at Homelander as a misunderstood hero or kind of a good person. Well, there's actually someone, people who aren't new to the channel will recognize here.
He forced a woman to commit suicide. How's he a good person? I'm not sure if
no,
you heard me.
no. Hold on. That woman, she was going to commit suicide anyway. She wasted his time.
No, she was not going to commit suicide.
She originally
literally said,
was going to commit suicide. In fact, it was only upon seeing Homelander act the way he acted that she wanted to bitch out of it and act like a coward. So in fact, Homelander was keeping her consistent.
A coward?
That's correct. If you make a decision, right, to do something and then you back out of it, you're a coward.
That sounds man. And it sounds
How does that sound?
You just as all right. It sounds like if you truly believe that, you're just as evil as Homelander. I believe that if he
listen to me. We can end this right now. We can end this right now. We can end this right now. I am just as quote unquote evil as Homelander. 100%. I identify with Homelander more than any other superhero.
Explains a lot.
It very much does.
So
nobody looked at Stormfront and thought, you know what, she's got a point there.
Nobody looked at Stormfront and said she's got a point. You do know that her character flaws are quite literally derived from real world people, right? You know that people like that still exist today, right?
Nobody clapped and cheered when the Deep forced himself on Starlight, and it's complete gaslighting to suggest otherwise.
Drinker, I agree most people won't think these things, but to act like there aren't people that do is genuinely you just playing dumb. And I don't even know what the point of you bringing up this is anyway. Outside of Homelander, the writer didn't even mention anything that you're mentioning specifically, and you have still yet to explain the problem with the writing of any of these things. The show isn't even trying to bash some political messaging when it comes to anything you did mention. It instead utilizes these things to make great dynamics within the plot, world building, and characters. Stormfront isn't a well-utilized character because, ooh, Nazis are bad. Homelander isn't a fantastic villain because you think the show is saying, don't be like this guy. And the Deep isn't a good character because of that either. These characters are good because they actually do interesting things with them, while showing the flaws of them as people, showing how they got to this point, how they became the way they are, and or how they impact the writing of each other or other people in the world as characters, through their dynamics with each other. Some people will unironically read Homelander's character as a beacon for a talking point on cancel culture, both sides of it. And it's funny because even though brain-dead morons will take that as the surface level interpretation of the character, the show explores that with depth of Homelander's actual character flaws, like his need to be loved.
The show was never particularly subtle about its politics or what it expected its audience to take from it. The difference though is that for the first couple of seasons at least, it was actually fun and entertaining because the creative focus was still on the story and characters. And believe it or not, people can be surprisingly receptive to your political ideas when they're smartly presented and wrapped up inside an entertaining product. People can empathize with characters that embody ideas they don't normally support, as long as those characters are well written and likable.
Well, good thing both Season 3 has done and Season 4 is doing exactly that with flying colors this far, and you still have yet to explain why it actually hasn't.
People are even capable of laughing at themselves when you point out the more absurd or extreme elements of their worldview, provided you do it in a way that's actually funny and insightful.
Yes, people can, however, if it is well written like it has been for 4 seasons straight now, there are people that will still get upset by this because they don't have a brain or media literacy.
In each of these cases though, the primary focus should always be on entertaining your audience instead of lecturing or pandering to them, and I think this is where The Boys has finally come unstuck. The more strident and blatant your messaging becomes, the less entertained people are going to be, and the more of your audience you end up pushing away.
I see where this point is coming from, and I can agree to some extent, but not in the context of the show that we're talking about. No matter what you do nowadays, there will always be people that make it political and get emotional over anything. And I agree, there can be examples of bad political messaging and ways to, execute your political messaging in your writing. However, you need to properly elaborate on how this is intrusive of the writing quality of the show, how it doesn't fit in the world, how it wouldn't make sense with the characters, how it doesn't fit with the character beats. Again, making blanketed statements is doing nothing.
Instead of uniting them with entertainment, you end up dividing and alienating them with politics. And well, I hope it was all worth it, Eric. I hope it was worth tanking your franchise, tarnishing your legacy, and turning your own customers against you, all for the sake of some cheap political theatre that's going to be forgotten as soon as your show's over.
Well, they seem to be doing just fine with that, but that's going to be the end of the response. Remember, if you have any disagreements with anything said in this video, both my Discord DMs and my Disagreement Days streams are always open. If you all enjoyed this, I would appreciate it if you would support me on Patreon, where you'll get early access to my comic that I'm currently working on for only $2. I thank you all for watching, and yeah.